All right, good afternoon, everybody. All right, so I'm going to start out with a question. How many of you have a commitment to safety? Raise your hands. All right, you're honest. Good deal, good deal. Okay. How many of you have committed to it financially? Don't raise your hands. Okay. It's not just saying that you believe in safety, you will need to be demonstrating it. So, colleague of mine passed along this slide. I think it's a great way to start this topic. I'm Nick Barilo. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Hygiene and Safety, talking to you about safety today and the importance of safety, and then some ways to navigate to safety and tools that will help you along the way. So everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So my comment to start all this off is, what is your plan? And are you prepared to be punched in the mouth? So we'll start out with that. We all recognize this. I throw this up to sort of set the framework for where we're going. Lots of great potential. There's lots of different pictures on here for applications on hydrogen. I think we can all recognize that a really great future where we're headed. The hubs are coming. I show the Google Trends because I saw this personally both in the trending, but also when I was giving a discussion in Australia, I saw a lot of this change in the paradigm that was coming even before things like the hubs were announced. So the real question is, how do we be successful in this process when we consider safety? So some thoughts here, and most of you could probably ascribe to some of these. Why safety? Well, it's morally right, number one. It's the right thing to do. We have to demonstrate that we're committed to safety. It secures long-term benefits for you, your business, and the wider community. Your workplace is more efficient and productive. The workers are more productive. You reduce downtime. In many cases, you're legally obligated. And a good health and safety record is a source of a competitive advantage. And then more and more job hunters are seeking companies that have integrity and share their values, and this is a big part of it. So probably a lot of you could say, yeah, we've heard all this before. This is pretty much what we understand. So I'm going to talk maybe just for a moment to some of you that have been around, maybe through many generations, you're hearing safety first, and that's grown a little bit tiresome to hear. So my word here is safety, really? So can you prosper without an emphasis on safety? So let's talk about that for a moment. So if you have a costly incident, my question to you is, do you have extra financial resources to cover it? If the media identifies safety issues with your business, can you afford a good crisis communications team to deflect it? If your product has a safety issue, will your customers overlook it? If your worker has an injury, will people get over it? If a permitting official doesn't think your activities are safe, can you afford the extra time and resources to convince them? If a safety issue results in business interruption, can your assets cover the business loss? Some things to think about. And then ultimately, do your actions and behaviors have any effect on the industry or its public acceptance? So I want to share with you two incidents. This first one that some of you may be familiar with was the Bhopal, India incident. A chemical leak at a facility resulted in 3,800 deaths, drastically changed that company's visibility in the global picture. More importantly, it forever impacted the chemical industry. So things like the Center for Chemical Process Safety were started to try and address those things, but that industry was never the same after this. And even today, there's legislation and regulations being promoted and suggested that can more severely affect some of the chemical industries and what they're doing. Second incident was the Space Shuttle Challenger. So this is a small thing like an O-ring failure, some things that were overlooked during the design and implementation, but it impacted the space industry for nearly 3 decades. So we saw a great downturn in what was happening. That industry took a long time to recover, and is it the same today? So maybe you're going to say, well, incidents won't happen to me. What I want to share with you is these are 5 recent hydrogen incidents that have occurred, and I'll talk briefly about some of the consequences of these incidents. This first incident was at they were testing an electrolyzer in a laboratory operation. They ended up having a membrane failure, hydrogen and oxygen mixed. They had an explosion, 2 fatalities. You see the picture on the right of what occurred. The fortunate part of the story, if there is one, is that they had had a tour going on just before this event occurred, and there was a much larger crowd in the area where this took place. They had moved on just a short time before it happened, so very fortunate from that standpoint. Another one was a vehicle fueling station, an assembly error of an end plug on the high pressure hydrogen tank. So this, again, it wasn't, somebody made a mistake on doing that. The loss itself was, from a property standpoint, wasn't hugely significant. The problem was that the organization was fined $3 million by the country's government. Another incident occurred with a transport vehicle. An incorrect pressure relief device was installed, during maintenance, there was also some fittings that weren't tightened properly. So I'm gonna hold off on telling you what came out of that one until I talk about this one. So there was a tanker loading incident, unauthorized repair, and failure to follow procedures. So the crew that was doing the transfer operation at the industrial plant from the production into the transport vehicles, there was a small leak occurring. Procedure would require that organization to stop the work, the person that found it, stop it, call for maintenance, have them come in and do the activity. That particular day, the worker was working with training a junior staff. This worker decided he wanted to try and fix it himself. He thought he knew how to do that. In doing it, the junior person didn't understand quite well the instructions that were being given him, ended up resulting in a very large release. A deflagration occurred, loud noise throughout the neighborhood and surrounding areas. Now the consequence for both of those incidents, they were the same organization, but both of those incidents occurred at different times. The challenge was both of those greatly impacted the distribution system of hydrogen, and this was for the light duty fueling structure. So a lot of people got very upset at the organization, certainly, and there was certainly more longer term ramifications. Another one was a bus fueling station. In this case, an incompatible pressure relief device was installed. There was a release out the vent pipe. Wasn't a significant event, it was just a fire coming out. The first responders, according to their process and procedure, had to evacuate 1 mile out because they didn't understand better what the hazard was here. And so, again, lots of businesses were impacted, lots of individuals were impacted and evacuated. Big impact on those surrounding the station, which at the time, didn't result in great ramifications for them. But we're moving into a different era now, right? Hubs are on the horizon, certainly much more deployments, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and the impacts of that as we go on. Ultimately, all these incidents were avoidable, and maybe you'll see the common thread in all these incidents was human error. There's nothing here that we didn't understand the phenomenology of hydrogen. All right, so just a few talks. I'm going to move a little bit more. That's the case for safety, and I'm going to talk about why, with hydrogen, safety is a little bit important and some of the ways we deal with this. So we all know it's the most abundant energy, most abundant element in the universe, and that it's an excellent energy carrier. Some of the properties that we need to think about. It rises and disperses rapidly. That can be good or bad. Easily ignitable, large flammability range, high burning velocity. It's a very small molecule. Can embrittle some materials, can be difficult to see at times. There's pressure hazards, there's low temperature hazards, and in some cases we don't have odorants, and that could present some issues as well. So I wanted to highlight those things on why safety is important. That said, let's stay balanced. All fuels contain energy and can be hazardous. And so we have been around things like gasoline and natural gas and propane, even electricity. We become comfortable, if not complacent, with those fuels. So the key here is to realize it's another fuel, has great potential and can be very beneficial, but like those other fuels, safe practices and uses are going to be critical to us gaining success in doing it. Okay, where are we at with safety? Well, safety issues for any application can be a deal breaker, but that's especially true for new technologies which are challenged with public acceptance and public securities. The key with hydrogen is that it's been around for a century, used in industry very safely. There's good best practices and operating procedures that exist. We have a lot of knowledge.
The challenge here is its uses of fuel is new to many. So they lack the experience, the expertise. They may not know what they don't know. And what all that does is it leads to some things like these dangerous assumptions. We've actually, in activities that we've done, ran into these. Things like we already know how to use it safely. We've been around other flammable gases. Some others are like, it's like any other flammable gas. It's too dangerous, the fear and those public perceptions around some of the past events. So if we fail to address these knowledge gaps, it can result in industry setbacks and incidents, and that's going to be a difficult challenge as we progress. So I want to talk about safely powering progress with hydrogen, but I want to make the point now to say we're at a new phase, okay? We've really been under this sort of this umbrella of, I call it an umbrella of grace, is where when incidents occur, they gain some local visibility, not a whole lot on the national scale. We sort of move through that well. And I liken this to sort of the Tesla cars. Early on, the Tesla cars, some incidents that occurred. Locally, they were some news, not big news nationally or internationally. That's different now. If a car on a Seattle freeway burns up and it's a Tesla vehicle, that makes international news and becomes very transparent to everyone. We're in a place that as these hubs get announced, as more funding and dollars and emphasis comes on the hubs, we're not going to have the opportunity to get away with things and ride under that radar anymore. It's going to be very visible. So even the smallest of incidents are going to be promoted and their impact is going to be more significant. So there's lots to think about with safety as we move forward. And this is just a word I threw together just to try to say lots to think about. Don't need to worry about all the words on there, but there certainly are. So how do we have the tools for project success to do this safely? Well, I've identified 5 areas that I think are important. Safety culture, codes and standards, best safety practices and lessons learned, some extra expert support, and then outreach. Let's take a look at these individually. Start by making safety a culture for what you're doing. Make sure it's clearly recognized value, that leadership for safety is clear, that accountability is clear, that it's integrated into all your activities, and that safety is learning driven. This has to start at the top and permeate down through all levels of your management as well as all levels at the work level. And we need to move from doing it for compliance to doing it because we feel it's best for what we're doing. Codes and standards. I think we all would recognize codes and standards are an important part of the process. They're developing quickly for the mature industries, things like light-duty vehicles, fueling stations, those things, becoming very mature very quickly. Not so much for other applications such as planes and trains and drones, but those are coming along as well. Codes and standards are needed to provide information to safely build and maintain and operate, ensure a uniformity of safety, provide the officials that are approving these facilities the information they need to do that well, and then ultimately to bolster public and stakeholder confidence. Let's talk about best practices. So I'm a fire protection engineer by training, more than 35 years. And what I've come to realize is just following codes and standards alone won't be enough. If you are committed to safety, you got to go beyond that. You got to apply the best practices. You got to take the things that we've learned from history and apply those. Those help protect your business. They help protect the reputation of your company and the industry as well. And these are basically best practices are those that implement extensive experience on safe use of hydrogen, whatever industry it might be. They protect people, equipment, and the environment, and are demonstrated by their incorporation into design, standard operating procedures, et cetera. So I want to tell you, engaging your community around this topic, especially as we move into hubs, will be ultimately critical. Outreach activities and bringing appropriate and consistent messaging of the information is important to gain that confidence in the public and other stakeholders. So in-person events, we found, are the best opportunity to do that. And certainly you need to include all the stakeholders that could be affected, highlight the technology differences, and address the safety issues. And it's been really cool because we've seen first responders that when we shared with them and shared the technology with them, they walked into the room a little bit looking at us with a little bit of cross-eye and not real sure about what we were going to do. They walked out saying, we think this is a great technology, we'd support it. And that's the kind of thing that you see when you get into that room and you explain the differences and you help them understand. Provide significant time for questions, answers, interactions. Should be obvious, but really it becomes a big part of your engagement opportunity. So how do I get some extra support? What are tools that can really help me along this journey? So I'm going to highlight two in this talk. One is the Hydrogen Tools Portal. The other is the Center for Hydrogen Safety that I'm a part of. So the Hydrogen Tools Portal has been around since 2015. It was an idea that we came up with to try to integrate a lot of information into one site, help you get at that information, help share that information broadly. What started out as a task in support of the Department of Energy and in support of the activities of the US has really become an international resource. You can see right now the breakdown in the pie chart. The Americas are really not, if you look at the whole pie chart, we're no longer the majority. And I think that's a testimony to the information and how it's being used. We have 100 pages of best safety practices, lots of other pages on information that's beneficial for understanding hydrogen and hydrogen safety. All of this leads to what I've been doing, and what's really a key part of the message I want to bring is about connecting people to safety. The words you see on here, the things like impart, and network, inform, advise, reveal, and disseminate, I've been passionate about all those things. It's really about connecting people with safety knowledge so that they can be successful. And that is what led to not only some of the tools you see in the portal, but it's led to this thing called the Center for Hydrogen Safety. So CHS is an international nonprofit, and it's really trying to champion best practices and lessons learned, empower stakeholders and the workforce, and ensure that we remove the barriers and impediments to success of where we're going. We now have more than 100 member organizations. We connect the global community to ensure the safe and timely transition of the hydrogen fuel cell technologies. It's the safe handling of hydrogen across all uses. It's not just fuel cells and energy transition, but it's also more legacy applications, more commercial applications. And then it's the resources that you need to ensure safety information, guidance, expertise, all that's available to you as you need it. And I'll stress the word here, more than anything else, we're a community working together. Some other things, we're focused on impact, we're strong on collaboration, and we're rich in resources. And that really describes what our goal is and what we're trying to accomplish. Here are some of the different types of information, resources, and tools that we have available, things like best practices, lessons learned, expert reviews, education and training, conferences, webinars, workshops. I'm trying to inundate you with words here. And incident coordination and working groups. Some of our activities. So again, global community, we're working together. I don't have it written down here, but one of the things that we're starting to see more of is it's about coming together as a community and having that license to do business. We're saying, as a community, we're committed to safety, and I'm going to show you just how impactful that is in a few slides. So we work together in various formats as a community, everything from meetings and activities and working groups, et cetera. We have expert review services, and those are really to help with those gap areas, or if you want some confidence in what your project's doing, we can review projects, participate in or review HAZOPs, be a part of incident fact-finding, those sort of things. And then we have many essential resources to increase knowledge, e-learning courses, credentialing, technical webinars, conferences, and workshops. Okay, on to our working groups, because this is really about where the community starts to bring some additional impact. We have these things called working groups. These working groups right now, there's only 4 right now. We anticipate 2 to 3 more being added in the near future, and one of those will probably be on hydrogen hubs. Blending has been our oldest working groups. This is blending hydrogen into the natural gas piping. We started out trying to identify gaps and needs. We moved to the concept of we need to build best safety practices. Right now, there aren't a lot of regulation codes and standards around blending. Best safety practices are going to be important for us to be successful. I also want to mention the Hydrogen Safety Panel. This is a group of individuals coming together to really help projects and activities. It was formed in 2003, so we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. We received an award at the DOE Annual Merit Review for 20 years of service. We've been involved in more than 400 projects and 600 reviews. This is across the whole portfolio, everything from early R&D up through demonstration and commercialization. We are serving different groups. Right now we serve the state of California in addition to the Department of Energy, and then we provide services to anyone that requests it through the Center for Hydrogen Safety. So some of the things, some of the impact of this group being involved in your projects are things like reducing costs from over-engineering, delayed approvals, missed safety considerations. We provide a balanced solution. We don't work as individuals, we work as a team. And then so teams of 3, and then those teams of 3 have access to the larger group as well. And so it means that we're looking at things more collaboratively with more eyes and thoughts on the topic and the issues. So that helps provide that balanced solution to questions and problems. We help projects avoid safety incidents, and the bottom right one is one that I'm continually encouraged, and it just helps me realize just the value of what we're doing is establishing that stakeholder and public confidence. We've been involved in projects where the local authorities, things like Marine-based captains as well, Coast Guard and others, American Bureau of Shipping, all had a higher level of confidence in what was going on with the hydrogen activity as a result of our involvement. Here's some of the activities that safety panel can be involved in: design and document reviews, HazOps, participation or review. You can see some of the others there. What I want to point out is it's across the entire portfolio of a project and activity. That second step, early design, is where this group can really bring impact to your project and your activities. They can get in at maybe like a 30% design, help you understand, get some good eyes on what they see is happening, and then provide input at a time when you still have an appropriate amount of time to go back and consider that input before it's too late or too costly on your project. So education and training. We have some education and training courses. We've always been a big fan of supporting the first responders. These courses you see here, some very professional courses that are done. These are available free of charge to anyone. We're aiming them at first responders. Some of the information can be used by everyone, but really many of these are video-based. Some of these are more traditional e-learning, but encourage you to look those up as well. We have recorded webinars, so our webinars are never aimed to be a light touch on a topic. They're really meant to dive into a topic. So we approach each of these webinars saying, how can we bring best value to those that are on the webinar? These are free the day of to anyone. After that, they're behind a paywall, except for CHS members can get all this access. They can access these for free. And then we have more traditional e-learning. These are fundamental hydrogen courses, and on a variety of topics. These were born out of best safety practices, so keeping that in mind. We also have a credential that we stood up, a first of its kind hydrogen safety credential for fundamentals. This is available if you or your employees need it or you would like to demonstrate knowledge. And then we have currently have a hydrogen laboratory safety course that is free. We're going to have 2 additional courses added in the next 6 months on fueling stations and electrolyzer safety as well. All right, so some steps to ensure safety is a part of your organization's priority. Participate. We have a conference coming up in May at a destination location called Vegas. Love to see you there. It's the 3rd week in May. Educate yourself. There's fundamental and intermediate continual training available. We can also do specialized training if the need is there. And then belong. Be a part of what CHS is doing. Be a part of our community. Help demonstrate and help be a part of developing materials that can impact what we're doing going forward. So when I say belong, here is the list of current members in CHS. And I think what has struck me more than anything else about this list is it's not just a list of members that we have. It's a list of organizations that are committed to safety, that believe in safety and want to make that at the forefront and want to demonstrate that to others. So invite you to come be a part of what we're doing. We are at booth A21, which is just across the windows. Love to see you there and talk more about it. At this point, I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions. We have a few minutes for questions, so if you have some, I'll try my best to answer them. So thanks, and let's get into any questions you may have. Or I did such a great job, nobody wants to raise their hand. I didn't put any plants in the audience, so.